Time to get inspired and improve your yoga knowledge in English. You're listening to Your Yoga in English, a podcast for yogis and yoga teachers that speak English as their second or third language and want to practice or teach yoga worldwide. I'm Annie, the founder of Enga Unite, and here to guide you on the way to become the confident and knowledgeable English-speaking yogi you want to be. Hello! Today we're going to speak to Yely Staley about finding or gaining confidence as a multilingual yoga teacher. Yely is a multilingual yoga teacher herself, so you can ask her all about it. Hi! Hello!
Good morning or good afternoon and good evening to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to speak about this topic. I already briefly introduced the topic of today, which is gaining confidence as a multilingual yoga teacher. And I think this is something, whatever field you work in, we struggle with. Let's dive in, but let's hear a little bit about you before.
Thank you for having me once again. I always enjoy our conversations. I feel very lucky to have met you, and I wish I could have met you when I was in my beginning of figuring out how to teach yoga in another language. I think that's a real struggle that we face, people who speak different languages, and there is not much support or community out there. So I think you are definitely a gem, a very special person who focuses on something so important and vital for those of us who speak different languages for X reason, right? So I am Yely Staley, and I was born in Venezuela, and then I moved to United States. So I speak English and Spanish, and therefore I have my mission in teaching yoga and meditation in both languages. One, because English is where I live, and it's the official language of the country I live. But also my native language is Spanish, which I adore, and I feel the call to teach yoga also to people who speak Spanish. And so for those of us who speak many languages, I think we're very special in the sense that we get to spread this wonderful practice of yoga to more people. We get to reach out to more people. And nothing is more beautiful than learning something in your native language. So my first advice is that if English is your second language, don't underestimate the power that you have to teach people in your native language, because it sounds like music to the ears, right? So yeah, I'm currently living in Florida, and I'm happy to be here.
I'm really happy to be here with you too. And what you said is truly incredible. I think a lot of people, among which myself, underestimate what we are capable of, or the skills and experience we already have, and especially when doing this in multiple languages. And Wandering Yoga is saying, I know the feeling, Yely. Thank you for sharing this. Amazing. And I think that's true. A lot of people struggle with this. So let's speak about it. You already mentioned you speak Spanish and English. Could you tell us a little bit about your, let's say, English learning journey?
In the language itself or teaching yoga?
Teaching yoga.
Gotcha. I was fortunate, so to speak, in the sense that I learned yoga in English, because this is where I live. I've been living in the United States for close to 20 years now. So I learned yoga in English. And so for me, it was like the natural transition to teach it in English. However, when you learn a language and then you learn the terminologies of specific field like yoga, you realize that something is different when you're a student, when you have to teach it, right? And that's where you might feel the tendency to feel insecure of your ability to communicate accurately and properly to lead a class. So in my case, I was already familiar with sounding and the teachings in English. When I became a yoga teacher, I felt the need to polish my way to express how I teach it. So I was diligent, so to speak, to learn and study the cues, body parts, anatomy, expressions of, colloquial expressions of certain things that might have a more homey feel when you teach the class. So you have to go through those steps because it doesn't come naturally to you because it's not your first language. So that's a little extra work that I think is worth it in the beginning to make sure that you feel confident in teaching yoga in English. And it could be also meditation. And then once you get the foundation, I think it becomes a little bit more easy and it boosts your self-esteem and self-confidence because you feel that you have the tools that you can pull in a specific time to speak the language in the yoga context.
Exactly. And I think it's something that you touched on. The language you use as a student or the language that we learn in a general English class, so to say, is so different from the language you use as a yoga teacher. So you say you were very diligent and you polished your way of speaking. What is something you used for that?
I observe classes of the teachers that I enjoy the way they teach. And so if they have videos online, whether it's YouTube or even on their own class website, sometimes you can see a video and instead of taking the class, you observe the video and take notes. You are like, oh, this is how they say bring the foot forward in between the hands so you can come into high lunge. So it's just learning how to direct and move a body using the expressions that you feel are effective, that it clicks in your head, right? And then with the time and years and experience, the more you teach, then you can polish those cues to reduce the amount of words that you use and keep it simple. Keep it very, very simple. So observing videos and taking notes of the cues, that can be consuming, but once you have that list of notes of how to move certain parts of the body or how to get someone to do a certain pose, then those cues can literally translate to many other poses, right? So that's one thing that I did. I buy a book of anatomy in English, and at the end of the book, there was cues on the expressions, when it comes to the breath, expressions that you can use when it comes to the physical body, cues about the state of the mind. So you can just kind of study how it's being said. And at the beginning, like anything new that you learn, especially in another language, you have to just repeat. You just repeat to get it in your mind vocabulary. And eventually you get to discern, well, does that phrase apply in this scenario? And how can I make it a little bit more simple and adjust it to what is going on in the class? So book, observing videos, taking notes. And yeah, that can take a time, especially if you teach different yoga classes style. Like if you are in a vinyasa, it's going to be different. If you teach restorative, if you are yin teacher, it's different than ashtanga teacher. So you have to kind of polish your vocabulary in a specific type of yoga class that you teach. So that's what I did.
Yes, those are great tips. I couldn't agree more. They are really, really good. We have recently started conversation classes to really help you get used to different terms and terminology and also get more fluent and accurate in it. Is this something that maybe you tried or maybe would recommend?
Absolutely. I think you need to practice teaching. And one way that you can be very effective to know if you are doing it or sounding as good as you would like to be is record yourself. It could be even a voice recorder. You can maybe do a sun salutation. Let's say it's sun salutation. You want to learn how to teach sun salutation. You can just record yourself and set a timer. 5 minutes. Just you don't have to do the whole thing, but just in 5 minutes you get to do the basics of sun salutation. You start recording. So when you record yourself, not only you are paying attention to the tone of your voice, the spacing between the words, because we need to give a little bit of silence for the students to process the instruction. So if you are going to be talking all the time, the students are going to be overwhelmed and the cues are going to go above their head. So what language you're using, the spacing between the words, how effective are the instructions, And the tone of your voice, again, is important. When you speak another language, we need to pay attention to that pronunciation, right? That is not a command, that is not a suggestion. You have to be like, you just gotta try to mimic all the videos that you were studying and try to do in your own way. I think that's the best way to know for sure. The best feedback you can get is from yourself. Then, when you feel a little bit confident, maybe you can talk to somebody that you trust, that you don't feel embarrassed, and you can say, hey, can I teach you, or can I say this to you and let me know how it sounds? What can I do better? It's always about getting feedback. Remember, feedback is to help you to get to the level that you want. It doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. Especially learning another language and teaching yoga, that's already above the average. So give yourself some confidence and some credit. And if you make a mistake, if you feel like you sound horrible, that's okay. That's what exactly you wanted to do before you put yourself there in front of a room, right? Is to be humble, to learn your own feedback. And when you give yourself feedback, don't be so harsh. It takes time. And if you need to practice pronunciation, just repeat the phrase over and over, and make sure you move your mouth. Don't be afraid to exaggerate the movement of your mouth to make sure the word is coming in a way that people can understand, because we will have an accent and that is not going anywhere, and you need to embrace your accent, but we can minimize our natural accent on top of the other language, right? And the best way to do that is to make a little bit more emphasis on your enunciation and how you put your lips, your mouth to make the sound more familiar with the language you are speaking. I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yes, it really does. And you're really speaking to all the struggles and challenges that I've been hearing in the last few, well, let's say months already. And it's fascinating. It really, really, really is something that we all struggle with so much at the beginning. And even as native speakers, it doesn't come out naturally because it's just not something that you're used to or grow up with speaking that way. So, yes, speaking to all the all those challenges, amazing. Why do you think we feel so unconfident or we experience this lack of confidence when we do speak, first of all, in another language or when we are in front of a classroom?
The first that comes to mind is we are afraid to be judged. We're afraid to make mistakes, and we are afraid to not deliver something that is good. And so becoming aware of that is completely natural and human to feel that way. I think you will feel that way regardless of what language you are speaking. Every time you put yourself in front of an audience, your all the eyes are on you, right? And
Mhm.
it can be intimidating. But hey, this is a yoga class, and something that you can always keep in mind when you feel insecure in teaching in another language or your native language is that people who come to yoga, they come to yoga because they want to feel good. And they're not going to be judging you. Everybody comes to yoga with their own struggles, and they're just there to feel good with themselves, right? So even if you think you did a horrible job, I guarantee you it wasn't that bad. And so the fear to be judged, the fear to make a mistake, and we are self-conscious in our ability to pronunciate correctly, to use the right words. And we might be feeling insecure in our ability to that our message gets across, right? Because you're like, oh, maybe they don't understand what I'm trying to say. And you try to reframe and say the same thing in different ways, and it complicates things. And once again, just keep it simple, and don't be afraid if you feel like you are being judged. Let's be honest, some people judge. In fact, I have a funny story. I was teaching a class, and at the end of the class, this lady came to me and she seems pretty upset. And she was upset because when I told her to rest her hands in her shin bones, she came to me and she wanted to correct my pronunciation. That's already rude, right? It is rude. I don't care if she was trying to help, but it's rude. And I didn't ask for the help for pronunciation. Obviously, she got what I was trying to teach her because now she's trying to correct me about it. So she was like, you should try to pronunciate better. And once you learn to pronunciate better, that's when you can start teaching.
Wow. And how did you deal with that?
I say thank you for your feedback. I'll keep that in mind. And I hope you enjoy the class. That's it. I
Mhm,
honestly felt like I wanted to cry there because all the effort that you put to teach in another language and somebody
mhm,
come in that way. But at the same time, I just applied the yoga. I was like, well, maybe that person had a bad day and she just vented with me and she just picked
mhm,
on me. Two,
mhm,
I know that I did my best. And, I will take that as feedback. She might be right. I mean, it doesn't hurt. I'll make sure to differentiate shin from the knee to the ankle. I'll
mhm,
keep that in mind. And my point in sharing the story is that you're always going to have those people who you're never going to be good enough. And if they don't like the way you talk or teach, then you're not their teacher. They can move on to another teacher. And another
mhm,
way to feel confident about your skills in teaching in another language, whether it's English or any other language, is that look up to people who have been successful in that language that is their second language. So my
mhm,
idol of teaching in English, my idol is Deepak Chopra. He
mhm,
has an accent and he speaks English with an accent. Sometimes it's hard to understand, but he has a message. He's authentic, he embraces it, and he's successful. So
mhm,
if he can do it, anyone can do it. So look for an idol in the country you live or the language you want to teach that is not your native and use that as an inspiration that you don't have to sound native. You will never will sound native and it's okay. And embrace your accent because that means that you speak more than one language and not many people can say that.
exactly, exactly. We've got two phrases we always fall back on, and I really use as motivation and affirmation. Is a foreign accent is a sign of bravery, and it's not about being heard, but making yourself understood. And that's
I
what you
love
said.
that. Oh, you have to
Mm,
share those affirmations with me. I love, love, love that.
I will
Oh,
send them to
somebody,
you.
somebody say something here. India, I love all the non-speaker efforts, even to learn the whole concept of yoga. Thank you. Yeah,
Absolutely.
we need to embrace differences, and
Mhm,
I think nowadays people around the world have to become more used to foreigners. And foreigners doesn't mean that you are invading, you are actually embracing the culture, right? When you don't even try to learn the language, that's a little close minded, in my opinion. At least we're trying, like you say, we're trying to get understood in their
mhm,
language. They should feel honored that we're doing our best to try, right? But hey, everybody's in
mhm.
different conscious state and again, don't take anything personal. Nothing is personal as much as it feels like.
No, exactly. As my teachers would say, it's all their material, has nothing to do with you. No, it's absolutely true. And I think it's such a common thing. We all want to sound like a native and we try everything to cover the accent or even don't use the words we like to use because they don't come out the way we want to. But it's really something to embrace and be proud of because it really shows how much you have worked and how much you have learned and that you're determined in your yoga practice, but also your learning journey in another language.
And it's an
Hmm.
education process, right? I know sometimes we might feel intimidated when people's like, "Where are you from?" And you're like, I don't know. Let's say you live in the United States, and people say, "Where are you from?" I'm like, "Well, I'm from Florida. I live in Florida." And they're like, "No, but
Hmm.
really, where are you from? Where is
Yeah.
that accent from?" And you're like, "Oh, I'm in the spot." And
Yeah.
I was like, "Well, I'm from Venezuela, but I've been living here for 20 years." And I'm like,
Exactly.
"Do you speak any other languages?" And they're like,
Hmm.
"Mm-hmm." And that changes the dynamic because you gotta educate people. Those questions, as harmless as they think they are not. And so this is
Hmm.
also a cultural bully intimidation that people are not aware that they are doing with these innocent questions that sometimes can affect your self-confidence or you feel insecure, right? You need to step
Hmm.
up for yourself and don't ever feel less because you speak another language. If anything, you should feel a little bit more.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. Um, so, speaking about this confidence and gaining confidence, if you have a little bit of practice and maybe you have dealt with these limiting beliefs, do you think you can completely overcome this lack of confidence, or will it always be there a little bit?
I think they will always be there, but the volume might be a little bit less,
Hmm.
right? Um, because even though you feel that you might be fluent in that other language, let's be honest, it's not your native language. It doesn't come easy or natural. And you're always, I mean, every day you're learning something about the language. I mean, that's my case. It's been 20 years and I'm learning something new every single day. It's incredible because it's a language and it's a culture on how to express and how to communicate. I'll confess, if I have to go to the mechanic, if I got to go to the dentist, if I have to hire somebody to come to my house to check the air condition, those are language. That's a different language. That's terminology that is different than their daily day thing or that the yoga thing. And I have to
Hmm.
triple check. How do I say that I feel pain in this tooth? How do I say this part of the air condition that is not working? Like it's hard. And so every day you are learning something. So yes, you're gonna feel not 100% confident every time you talk, regardless of the situation, but trust in your knowledge, trust in the efforts that you have applied to the language. And once again, you gotta stay humble and know your limitations and be okay with that and continue learning. And just like life, everything is a continuous learning process. So the point is, you might feel self confident for the rest of your life in whatever languages you speak.
Hmm.
But become aware of that with a little bit of self compassion. Trust in yourself. Give yourself some well deserved credit
Hmm.
and minimize that. Recognize when it starts, but don't let it grow. And just take your deep breath and do the best you can.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a very interesting thing because language, but everything in life is constantly evolving as well. So the vocabulary changes, and there's new things that are adapted or adopted from other languages. So there's always something to learn, even in your native language. There's always other words that come back as well. And like
Yeah.
you said, don't underestimate everything that you know already, and just embrace the mistakes you make, embrace the new things that you learn, and it all will come. Practice and all will come.
And
Uh,
the people that you interact with that might not be multilingual, you're also a source of education for them, right? The
yes.
way the way they want to teach you things. If you have a non-native person that also is multilingual, like us, we can talk about this and feel like, oh, I'm not alone feeling this way. I'm not alone having these type of experiences. But if you have
Mhm.
friends who are native and you hang out with them, you obviously can learn how to say things and you can ask them, what does this mean? Why do you say it like this? Don't say it like that. And just ask questions. So
Mhm.
it's open channel for them to give you feedback in a more friendly way when you
Mhm.
make a mistake or something, or just tell them, listen, if I say something wrong, do you mind telling me why and how can I fix that? And you can have those type of support around you. And they also learn because like sometimes when I ask questions, they don't know the answer because it comes so natural to them. And like, what is the difference between this and this? And why don't you say it like this? And they're like, I never thought about it. I don't know an answer. I'm gonna have to Google it. And that's okay. But they become aware that holy moly, it is hard to learn another language, plus the culture, plus the meaning, plus the colloquial expressions. And learn about the colloquial expressions too, because sometimes we want to sound so native that we repeat the colloquial expressions that we really don't understand how they originated and what do they really
Mhm.
mean. In my case, here
Yes.
in the United States, I've learned a lot of colloquial expressions that sound very native are very racist. And I'm like, oh, I better don't say that. As much as I wanted to sound local, I don't want to sound like a racist. So I don't say certain things anymore because you repeat, but you have to also apply your filter. What are you saying and what are you saying and how are you saying it? So same
Mhm.
thing in yoga, right? If you have to be careful It's always the learning process. That's what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely, I agree. And I wanted to ask you, because last time we interviewed you about self-care practices, are there any self-care practices that help us gain confidence in this aspect?
Yes, I actually wrote that because
Ah,
I wanted to
amazing.
share with you. I have 6 for you. And the first one is self-love and compassion meditations and affirmations, just like the affirmation that you share with us. Those type of practices, self-care practices, helps a lot to enhance your confidence. And so I have self-love and compassion meditation and affirmations on my website that you're welcome to go there. They're like 5 or 10 minutes, and that's a type of self-care to just give yourself some credit and some compassion and affirmation to feel confident. Be okay with having an accent and embrace it. It's part of your voice and it's part of your signature as a yoga teacher. Look up to people who have become successful in their non-native language for inspiration. We talk about this, that I look up to Deepak Chopra. I also look up to Shakira, she's from Colombia, speaks Spanish, and she speaks English. And I remember when I was learning English, and I was like, I can't get this. Maybe I will never learn how to speak it. And I always thought of her like, if she did it, I can do it. There's nothing special. We're all humans, so and that's another way of self-care, to give yourself some reassurance that you have what it takes to also do it. Understand that those who might make you feel less because you don't sound like a native simply are ignorant and they are not your ideal student, and move on. Don't dwell on them. And you are smart and brave. Your courage and passion to teach yoga in another language, to reach out to more people so they can enjoy this practice, should be your inspiration and fuel. And last, in a broader spectrum, I have recently wrote an article for Yoga Medicine. This titled "The Importance of Embracing Self-Care Practices as a Lifestyle." And I will share the link with you. You can read that so you can also practice the self-care beyond the speaking another language and beyond teaching the yoga, but self-care for you as a person, so you can fill your cup and do the best when you go into the class.
Amazing. Those sounds amazing. And you mentioned you have the affirmations on your website too, right? So
Yeah,
I will share those links in the caption and on the podcast later on so people can find them back easily.
yeah,
Amazing.
wonderful.
Yes. Anka's asking, how do you find balance between the two languages? I'm ahead of my training, but I start teaching my mum and sibling in my native language, but also learn yoga in English. Very good question, Anka.
So let's say that you're asking, how do you find balance between the study? Just kind of choose which language you will be primarily teaching the most, and then prepare on that one obviously first. And then if you're teaching the other language almost like a secondary, then you can kind of treat that a little bit less intensive when it comes to preparation. If you are working and creating content equally on both language, I'll be honest, it can be a little bit daunting because you are duplicating your work. And not only you're duplicating the work, but you have to add a little tweaks to make it sound more to the culture, right? So I use a lot of Google Translation to give me the base, but then I have to go there and tweak it to sound more like what people will speak on that language. If you're creating flyers, you can always duplicate, so you don't have to do everything from scratch. You just switch the words here and there to each language. If you're writing, if you have a website, that's where it gets a little bit more tricky. Luckily, right now, there are so many softwares that you can add to your website, and then people will click the little flag about their language and they can translate. Anytime you use a third-party software for translation, it's never going to be 100% accurate. But I think everybody knows that. The idea is just to give an idea of what you're trying to say. And you just got to be honest with yourself. Are you willing to put the time and effort equally when you're teaching constantly on both languages, right? And I personally have 2 different accounts. And so that is worked, right? One where it's mainly English, and I do certain bilingual stuff because for some reason people who speak Spanish follow me there a lot. I think they just feel attracted to the English and they're trying to probably learn English. But then I also have my account that is 100% Spanish. And that, to be honest, feels a relief because it's like one time and done, right? Um, but you have to be honest. How committed are you to to express this knowledge into languages and feel yourself? Are you getting burned out quickly about something? And then these self-care practices are a good way to help you find a balance between the two and be honest, how is my audience in here and how is my audience in here, and focus on where the biggest audience is, because you don't want to be putting so much effort when you only have probably one or two people that they can probably use the translation to figure out what you're trying to say. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, I would like to add to that question because I have seen teachers, I have tried it, but it wasn't a great success. I have seen teachers teaching bilingual classes, so combining languages in one class. I I have experienced to be very confusing, and I see you don't agree with it either.
I've seen it a lot here, and it's called Spanglish, where you mix English and Spanish. And I understand that when you live in a place for a long time, you kind of start forgetting things about your own native language, and it's easier to say it in your daily language, right? So if I'm speaking English almost every day, because this is where I live, but then when I talk to my mom in Spanish and I don't talk as often, and then we're talking about something in Spanish and I forgot the word in Spanish, I might say it in English. And it's because the brain is, the brain is amazing. However, this is personal. I'm not judging if you're doing it, and if it works for you, great. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who feel like that works for them because they might be on the same in the same page of living in a place for too long and they speak another language and it's natural and they get the mixing. But personally, I feel that it's a matter of each language because each one of them are so different, so beautifully unique. And when you combine them, I feel like you are committing a horrific crime. And people get confused, right? Because in my case, Spanish is very romantic. And the words are, I don't know, it touches your soul. It's so romantic. English, on the other hand, is so cold and it's so out there in your face, In Spanish, you will say, and your eyes looks like this shiny moon, and in English will be like your eyes are bright. Yeah. And so when I'm teaching certain things, the combination can be. I know teachers who have meditations in Spanglish, and they are like, and close your eyes and take a deep respiration, and I'm like, whoa. Well. So it's, once again, you have to explore what works for you, and good for you, Annie, for exploring. And if you feel like for you was a disaster, then you experience it and it didn't work, but maybe it will have worked. It's all about exploring, I think.
Exactly. I think it's a thing a lot of people try because they want to accommodate to their different people in their classes, and some may don't understand all of it in English or all of it in Spanish, which is also my case. I've never tried teaching or practicing in Dutch, which is still on my to-do list.
And I think when people teach like that, combining the two languages, it goes back to that question that we just got, how do you balance? Is because one, they might not want to put the effort to separate the content and to double the work because it's a lot. And imagine if you speak 3 languages, are you going to be teaching and having 3 different accounts? You have to be really honest, again, where your main audience is, what language do they speak, and create that content first. But don't take shortcuts just because you are not honest with yourself on where the effort should go and who is your audience. That's where you need to be honest with yourself.
Yes, beautiful. I completely agree with that. Really, really good point. Amazing. Does anyone else have any questions, or is there something that you would like to add to this?
You just gotta be creative and add a sense of humor. I think that's what I want to close this. You gotta have a little bit of sense of humor. You have to, don't push so hard, don't put so much pressure. You're doing the best you can. learning another language is not easy, especially if you're learning when you're older. If you were lucky to learn it before you were 16 years old, it's going to come second nature to you. But if you learn something recently and you are beyond 16 years old, it is hard and it's a constant process. So have fun in the process. Give yourself a little bit of padding and practice a lot of self-care and self-compassion and believe in yourself. Believe in yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So tell us, where else can we find you? You mentioned your website and you have several accounts. So give us a quick summary.
A quick summary, if you speak English, you can follow me on Yoga Yely. I have my website under that handle, Instagram and YouTube. My YouTube is bilingual, so if you speak Spanish and English, you can go there and see how I play with teaching in two different languages. My Yoga Yely on Instagram and Instagram mainly is bilingual, as well as on Facebook. If you speak Spanish, you can follow me on Yoga Hispana. It's 100% in Spanish as well. And that's it.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today. And again, I'm so grateful for all your tips and sharing your experience, because I recognize myself in it, but I think a lot of people here do recognize themselves in it too. And I think it's a great topic to actually speak about a little bit more.
There is not many people who are talking about this. So thank you for bringing awareness and raising and adding attention to this, because it's very important. And I feel super grateful and honored to have another wonderful conversation with you. I'm beyond grateful that we connect. And I'm sure many, many more projects ahead we're going to continue doing together. So thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much. And that's right. I'm going to ask you again and again and again. So much to learn from you.
Likewise. Please send me those affirmations that you were mentioning, because they're really, really powerful.
I will send them to you. All right. We're going to leave you guys here. If you have any questions later on, if there's something that you would like to share, do so, because we are here to help you and also to hear you. And we'll be back soon again.
Bye, guys. Bye, Annie. Have a good evening.
Bye. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye. You listen to Your Yoga in English, brought to you by Enga Unite, a unique online learning platform for non-native English-speaking yogis and yoga teachers. If you feel inspired and liked what you learned today, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and follow us at Enga Unite and become a member of our online community, Your Yoga in English, on Facebook. Practice, rest, repeat, and all will come.